Hi, everybody. Excuse me, I've only got a few minutes to be here, but I gotta get back to working on my YouTube stuff. And so I'm gonna do it a little bit at a time. So the hearing yesterday for Brian Kohberger related to cameras in the courtroom. I I didn't much like judge comments. Right now, look, I'm a nobody um, in terms of the court. This court thing and everything. I'm a nobody, but there were some things that he said that I think he's wrong. I think that he has his perspective. He has his own personal bias as a judge or as an attorney. But in terms of human nature and the things that people do and have always done, have always engaged in their whole entire lives, he's just not accurate. I think it would be helpful for him to seek out a person who understands human nature and get a little guidance. And here's what I'm talking about. So he does I agreed with everything he said about the media and the commentators, and he talked specifically about YouTube, that we need to do better, that we need to be more responsible and not zoom in on someone's crotch. And, that's just silly. We should be, most of us are adults, here. But people also like comedy. This is a true crime it's disturbing. We're not talking about recipes. There are bad things that get talked about. And just like some comedians will make jokes about really fringe things that they really ought not make jokes about, like Joe Biden and his relationship with some of his children. Comedians have always been the ones to push that envelope and make jokes about things that are not socially acceptable. But people do find humor in some of these things. It releases tension. It's, there's a lot of reasons that people will express humor in unusual, difficult, socially inappropriate situations. So we can't go around policing. We can't go around policing people's behavior, which is one of the reasons that I really, really dislike the cancel culture. I'm really against this group that has decided that they are the arbiters of the appropriate behavior in the true crime community. And they're going to go around and try to destroy the channels of those YouTube creators that they think are not worthy of having a channel. I'm totally against that. The level of arrogance that takes, the level of narcissism is off the chart. People live their lives the best way that they know how. And we tend to gravitate towards the things that we approve of, the things that we enjoy, and we are repelled by the things that we don't enjoy, the things that are not good for us or healthy for us. And I think natural selection is what originally the inventors of YouTube had in mind, and that is how it has evolved. So I don't like the cancel culture. I'm against all that. And Judge is promoting more of the same idea. And he's saying, well, we're just going to this like old school elementary, before people really understood what good behavior, programs were. If one person in the classroom does something wrong, then the whole class has to be punished. And they believe that the group pressure would cause everybody to behave. And that's not what happened. It just devolved into bedlam. And I think that Judge is sort of thinking about that in his mind, and he's going, well, they have to behave themselves before we will consider letting them have cameras in the courtroom. And then he goes on to talk about some fringe YouTube channel, some guy that's just out there trying to make funny things, not someone who discusses these cases in depth and has an interest, in the outcome and all that. Like Steve Goncalves and his wife, for example, they have a real interest in this case and the outcome, and they have been responsible with what they have done. Even when they were angry, they said, I'm angry. I don't like what you're doing. But they didn't go off and do something that would have blown up the whole case, right? We have seen the effects of a gag order. When you, the court, and I'm addressing Judge, when you use the court and you issue this blanket gag statement, you are denying the people that are really in this community and the people that actually discuss these conversations and these issues that they're intelligent. Some of them are attorneys themselves. Some of them are just like me, where I like human behavior. And so I'm interested when behavior goes wrong. We would be willing to have these conversations in a very responsible and respectable way. Look at how the Murdaugh case was handled. And the Murdaugh case was 10 times bigger than anything related to Brian Kohberger. And there were none of these kind of issues. Now, the damn clerk of court showed her butt and was not really, going along with this whole act with dignity and respect. In fact, that clerk of court broke the law, Judge. Or seems to have, allegedly. So you are making excuses, I believe. You are making excuses when you say that because there have been a few unscrupulous or comedic elements on social media that have used a popular news story to make some funny memes. You're now saying, media has been so disrespectful and irresponsible, and you are 100% wrong about that. There are not only true journalistic quality people trained in journalism that have handled the case very well, but there are also other organizations that do not have that training, but are equally committed to a justful outcome, like Web Sleuths or True Crime Grizzly. And so you're really doing that old school, if one kid does wrong, the whole group gets punished. And the outcome is going to be exactly what you are claiming that you want to avoid. And we've seen that with the gag order. With the gag order, there's been no factual information to discuss, and that has allowed an environment rich for conspiracy theories, and can we just say it? Exploitation of BS. There have been some channels that have put out information that is just nuts, like naked men running around the house in the middle of the night. It's crazy. So, Judge, get some guidance. Go find one of the licensed psychologists in your area and ask them about this idea of, are we going to increase the nonsense through a gag order and limiting cameras? Is that really going to make it fertile ground for the crazies and the conspiracy theorists and the comedians? Is that going to give them fertile ground to continue to put out their nonsensical BS? Or are we better off to give access to the actual evidence and the actual testimony, and accept that most people are going to talk about the evidence and the testimony And it's only going to be a fringe few or the comedians who are going to take some of this content and make it goofy. But can I say this, Judge? I have a PhD. I think I can figure out when someone's being goofy and when someone's trying to have an actual conversation about fact. So I disagree with Judge on the motivation for keeping the cameras out. Disagree with that. I think we have plenty of cases where people conducted themselves with an incredible amount of dignity and respect for the court, and they didn't go crazy. We just finished up with the whole Murdoch thing. The public handled it well, while the courthouse itself did not. There was also Gannon Stauch's case, where the public was very respectful, and it was the courtroom behavior itself that was berserko off the chart. It was one of the witnesses and it was the defendant, and they made the witness and the defendant made that a circus, not the people that were discussing it online, not the YouTubers. The YouTubers treated it with respect. So I'm talking about the court case and the showing of the courtroom. So I get that you live in a world, or that the judges and the attorneys, they live in a world where dignity and decorum is a foundation for how they conduct their jobs. Even at the height of disagreement between the defense and the prosecution, they're still addressing each other as sir and ma'am, and they're still they're not letting a string of cuss words go, fly. They're still relying on the rule of law to guide the progression of the argument. But that doesn't mean that you can make a bunch of uneducated people that have not gone to law school, you can't make them follow that same rule, Judge. No, that it can't be. It's like saying, okay, to my little kid, okay, if you sit down in front of the camera or the television and you watch football every weekend, then you're going to end up being, the next great quarterback. No, that's not the way that it works. To become an attorney and to have that level of self-control and guidance by written law, it takes years of study and then actual practice and apprenticeship. The general public doesn't have that, but they would very much like to discuss these cases. What about the not just family member, but what about the friends of these four? They were very popular students. There's a whole campus of kids grieving and mourning, and they're entitled to understand what happened that night. They have a right to know. Our Constitution does say that these trials are a matter of public interest. And back in the day when maybe a big thriving metropolis was 500 people in a town, then it was easy for everybody to get access to the courtroom if they had interest in the case. But in this day and age, where some of us live in cities with 3, 4, 5 million people, you can't get into a courtroom all the time. And yet those kids were directly affected by their own friends being heinously murdered right across the street from the campus that they're living on every day. It could help them, those that have developed PTSD and other anxiety disorders, or they're grieving and complicated grief, depression. It could help them to be able to hear the testimony and the witnesses and how that evening, or how those kids' lifestyle, how it all came together to this horrific one moment of tragedy and nightmare. So I'm really frustrated. I'm frustrated with this knee-jerk reaction of, we got to close ranks. We've got to live a life of protectionism. We got to erect walls around the kingdom, and we're going to post sentries to fight off the commoners and not let them be, aware or a part of what we're doing as the kings and queens. That is not the way to go with this. And we see that by the gag order and the resulting insane cash cow conspiracy theory channels that have popped up. I mean, we got this weirdo WSU Kim, running all over the place telling these extraordinary lies. I don't know if the woman's lying or if she's delusional or crazy. I don't know what's wrong with her, but I do know that she, in order to do this, to insert herself as if she is connected to this horrific crime, she's taken on the persona of a really famous WSU family. It's weird. She's not, this isn't normal what she's doing. But if we had a information officer, if we had access to the cameras and the hearings that are happening, then WSU Kim wouldn't be able to get away with her BS that she's manipulating people with. She wouldn't be able to get away with it. And that's where your jury ends up having a problem, is because the jury, before they're chosen, the jury stumbles across these extraordinary videos with these clickbaity titles. What this person hears is just BS, bullshit from this weird woman, WSU Kim. And then this person ends up getting called for jury duty, and you can't unring a bell. What you've seen, you've heard. So no, you're hurting your jury pool. You're hurting the process. Even though I respect what you're trying to do, it's the wrong execution of the right idea. You can never have too much sunlight. You can never have too much truth. Never. The truth is never going to end up in the wrong place. Never. Never. So if you want to control the weirdos and you want to control the lies and the cash cow clickbait, I don't guess you can ever control a comedian. But if that's what the goal is, you need to sit back and rethink what you're doing. You didn't have all these weirdos coming out of the woodworks when you guys were putting information out. And I'm talking about information that would be sanctioned by your court, judge. Talking about information that you would know what it was. You would know that it was factual, and it would come out with that seal of approval that says, I'm an authority, I'm an extension of the court, and I'm willing to give this information about what has been happening. And we in no way can confirm anything related to naked men running around that house that morning. And that nips it in the bud right there. The scrupulous people, the people with dignity, will say, oh, that's just a clickbait channel. They're just making up things that are not real. They're just trying to make money, and there's nothing of value there. So let me go over to this channel that is not putting out information about naked men. All right. So wrong execution of the right idea, judge. I really believe that in my heart. I really think that you can never have too much sunlight, and truth and light can never be bad. Never can it be bad. Maybe uncomfortable sometimes, but it's never bad. So, all right, hey, Zoots and Boots. I always want to go to Zoot, Scoot, and Boogie. All right, how y'all doing? All right, Crime Sleuthin. How are you, Crime Sleuthin? Yep, no contacts on today. Sorry. All right, I thought the defense would want cameras in there. Prosecution has a bunch of mistakes, supposedly. You're right. Wouldn't it benefit to have cameras in the courtroom? 100%, Verica. I agree. Totally. Hey, Hills in the air. Hey, friends. I feel the victims' families should be heard on how they feel about cameras in the courtroom, and as a factor, 100%. Yes, the victims absolutely should have at least be on the record for what their wishes are. And I'm going to tell you straight up, young adults like these four that were murdered, their closest relationships are with their friends at this age group I'm talking about. Okay, and it does come full circle. You do go back to the family of your origin. But at this particular age, for those kids, their closest relationships were with their peer group, right? That means the kids that are still alive are devastated. That means that the boyfriends and the people that loved them and the friends that spent time with them, those kids are in the dozens, if not hundreds, and they are hurting. They are hurting. They're entitled, and to a wider parameter. To if we extend the perimeter out further, then you would even say those kids that are going to school there, living in those apartments or that road or that neighborhood, they also have been terribly affected, because it's horrifying. It's frightening to think. I was laying asleep in my bed while these four young people who are just like me were being savagely brutalized. Why? Am I to be next? Are my friends? Will this happen in my apartment? Will this happen down the street? It creates a sense of warfare. It creates this idea that that there's no protection from the most horrible horror film that you can imagine. So even for those people, the people in the neighborhood that may not have known these young people, hearing the testimony, hearing the connections and what happened can go a long way to helping the people that are experiencing PTSD and whatnot, simply because it's made them unsafe in their own lives. Hearing the real story, understanding the true progression, that can go a long way to help them get over the trauma they've experienced by simply being a tertiary level of effect from the crime. So there is a lot wrapped up in this thing of allowing community to be a part of these proceedings. Whether it's because you knew and loved the four victims, whether it's because you were family to the four victims, or because you live next door to the four victims, or you went to school with one of the four victims, or you just go to school there, but you didn't know any of them, you are affected by a crime of this magnitude. And that means, according to the founders, we should be given access if it's going to be information that may help us heal and move past the trauma. Yeah? All right. No, I think the judge, I don't like that he spent so much time with, oh, well, this is not entertainment. This is a tragedy. Judge, come on. Jerry, because I think he looks like Jerry Springer. Judge, please don't lecture us like we're small children. We know this is a tragedy. There's no question. Perhaps one of the biggest tragedies in this country, the way that it all played out. So, number one, how dare you talk down and lecture people like they are kindergartners, even though some comedians sometimes, their humor is a bit juvenile, but they're comedians. That's not the media. That's not the commentators. That's not the YouTube creators for the most part. This is not about you asserting dignity or being the granddaddy of Idaho. That is not what this is about. This is about the very real influence, the effect that crime has on people. And how do we help them get past it and heal? And knowing what happened, being given the facts, being given the opportunity to hear the testimony can go a long way to helping someone who is suffering from the effects of that horrific nightmare. It can go a long way to help them put it all back together and reclaim their safety and their control and moving forward as a healthy person. That is the truth. You never, ever, ever, ever accomplish that when you turn the lights out and lock the doors. And Judge, that's what you're doing. You want to turn the lights out and lock the doors, because that's where sneaky crap happens, is where there's no corners that no one can see in. Like in the Murdaugh case, calling a juror into a ladies' room and closing the door with nobody else in there. That's what you're going to set up, Judge. If you do this, you're going to set up that nightmare scenario that is playing out right now today in South Carolina. Turn the lights on, shine the spotlights, put out an official information line, let the cameras roll, and then protect his civil rights, his constitutional rights, protect what he is entitled to in the courtroom. But can we be honest? This is a guy that's stealing iPhones from his sister. He's got a history and a background. He's been implicated in this horrific crime. Maybe he's not like a sugar sculpture. Maybe he's not going to melt if a little drop of water gets on him, Judge. There's a bigger responsibility here. Yes, he's entitled to his constitutional protections, and that's why he's got attorneys. The prosecution has to follow certain rules in the court. The jury has to follow the rules that you set. But you are not king of the world, and you cannot tell people what they're allowed to think is humor and what is not. And go to Twitter and look, because you're going to find out, since all this silliness happened about the fly, people are doing all kinds of memes that are showing you can't control the humor. You can't control what people choose to do with his image. You can't control that. But you can control what's being put out as fact. You have the ability to control that by letting the cameras roll and letting everybody see what really happened in the courtroom. All right, I got to go. You guys have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you will like and subscribe and share the video. See you later.